Welcome back to another episode of Warren Cali. In this episode, I will detail a story of how a robbery went wrong. Like I said often, San Diego was one of those cities that get overlooked on the scale of violence and gangs. Many people just think about the tourism of San Diego, from zoos, beaches, food, and views, which Dago is a beautiful city and one of the most known tourist attractions in America. But just like any other city, is an underworld to Dago, and crimes and gangs, and various different races and communities occupy San Diego, from Crips, Bloods, Pirus, and several Southsiders help make Dago what it is. The emergence of gangs can be dated back decades, but most gangs who stay relevant and active to this current day formed around the 1970s, and a lot of gangs in Dago will form in the 1970s, just like Los Angeles. Crips, Bloods, and Pirus were originally formed in Los Angeles County and spread to various other areas, some close and some all across the country. But just a few hours away, a city called San Diego had the same things going on, and the culture of Los Angeles spread to Dago. By the 70s, many hoods will form in Dago, and a certain section of Dago called the Southeast will have a host of gangs, later making the Southeast one of the most deadliest areas of Dago. One of the earliest Crip gangs to come out of San Diego and the Southeast will be the Dago Rollin 40 Crips, who formed in the 1970s, after a Rollin 30 Crip from Los Angeles named Donnie Ramsey helped form the gang in Dago, which the Rollin 40s in Dago were actually formed before the Rollin 40s in Los Angeles. But the 40s in Dago pushed just like the ones in Los Angeles in various ways, from being an active gang and repping Rollin 40 Crip, as well as neighborhood Crip, as well as being rivals to several Bloods. The 40s have decades of history in Dago, and several members who joined and stood out at every time point, and that leads us to gangs like the 40s having young members join their set. Like any other gang, the average gang member joins around 12 years old, in some cases, even younger. So by their teenage years, you would expect the kid to have some experience in the streets or working towards it. Being in the streets leads to a lifestyle that comes with losing friends, jail, and even potentially losing your life. And that leads us to the story of a 15-year-old named Derrick Harris Jr., a young member of the San Diego Rollin 40 Crips. He was named Little Drocc. Derrick was in the streets already. Just being 15, he was already committing crimes. On February 7, 2017, Derrick and a 26-year-old man named Joshua decided to do a robbery and a home invasion. Allegedly around 2 a.m., Derrick and Joshua broke into a home on the 2400 block of Edding Drive, both armed with guns and looking for valuables. But this night wouldn't go easy. Breaking into the house led to Derrick and Joshua having a run-in with the residents of the home. 44-year-old Francisco and his 22-year-old son Francisco Jr. would engage in an altercation with Derrick and Joshua as they tried to rob their home. This led to a shootout between both sides. Francisco Jr. would be shot, but he survived. But 15-year-old Derrick wouldn't be so lucky. Francisco Sr. fired his gun at Derrick, which led to Derrick losing his life. This led to Joshua fleeing the scene and not being caught for several years. Deputies arrived to the scene to find Francisco Jr. in his front yard. He was suffering from gunshot wounds. Paramedics took him to a hospital for treatment of his non-life-threatening injuries, which he would survive from. The shooting was ruled self-defense, making Francisco and Francisco Jr. free of any charges against him. But that wouldn't be the case for Joshua.
On a deadly home invasion we first brought you as breaking news last week. The suspect who was killed has now been identified as 15-year-old Derrick Harris Jr. Investigators say Harris and another suspect went to a home in the 2400 block of Edding Drive in Lemon Grove. A man who lives in the house was shot. His father shot and killed Harris. The shooting victim is being treated for gunshot wounds. The father was not hurt. Another suspect is...
New information in the investigation of a deadly home invasion in Lemon Grove. The sheriff's department says one of the two intruders was 15 years old. 10 News anchor Robert Santos has more on that boy who was killed and the search for the other gunman still on the run.
It was a terrifying wake-up call for the Suarez family 1 week ago. Two armed intruders forced their way into their home that rainy morning just before 2 o'clock. 22-year-old Francisco Suarez Jr. took 3 bullets to the chest. 10 News was there when sheriff's deputies found him alert and talking. His father, Francisco Sr., shown here, was located feet away in the hallway, exhausted from a shootout. The outside of the house shows what was an intense gun battle. Detectives say the father wrestled the gun away from one of the intruders and used it to protect himself and his son. Sheriff's investigators now identify one of the suspects as 15-year-old Derrick Harris Jr. He was killed in the home. Investigators say Harris's parents reported him missing the day after the home invasion. 1 week after that incident, all is quiet in the neighborhood. Some neighbors saying they haven't seen much of the family since intruders broke into their home. Investigators still do not have a motive. They believe the family did not know their attackers. Robert Santos, 10 News.
The other suspect is still on the run, and sheriff's investigators don't have a description. They do believe he is in his early 20s.
It took about a week to identify Derrick. Within days of the incident, the sheriff's department said Derrick's family reported the teen as missing. Homicide detectives looking into the Lemon Grove case learned of the missing person report. They collected DNA from the teen's family and confirmed the missing boy was the one who died in a break-in, being Derrick. Detectives from San Diego Sheriff's Department would say, "You have a person who committed a very brazen and violent home invasion robbery. In doing so, he brought along a 15-year-old child who eventually during a struggle was shot and killed. That's unfortunate." Relatives of Derrick told news reporters, losing him affected the lives of many. It's a tragedy that his time was cut so short. He was loved and he would definitely be missed. Until 2019, this case went cold on the second suspect in the robbery, with no real leads of Joshua, with only being announced he was an adult male. But with Joshua being arrested in 2019, it would lead to him being linked to the 2019 murder-robbery incident. Joshua also took part in several other crimes, like a day prior to the robbery that him and Derrick committed on February 7, 2017. On February 6, 2017, Joshua took part in a hostage-style takedown, in which 5 residents were held at gunpoint and stripped of their clothes and also their belongings. This led to Joshua being charged with over 20 felony charges, including robbery, kidnapping, attempted murder, and also the murder of Derrick, with him dying during their robbery attempt, but this was later dropped. Joshua later fight these cases in jail for several years, but the records of what happened are hard to find. This story was another unfortunate case of what being in the streets can lead to. No one should die at the young age of 15. This will conclude this episode. If you haven't already, check out my previous episodes. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.